yourself.
so name's Jacob Bills. I live in San Diego, California, originally from Washington State. Been here for about 3 years. And right now I have a fitness business, kind of two-pronged. One side of it, I'm teaching people how to burn fat and lose weight. That's kind of my favorite clients to work with right now that I specialize in. And then I'm also teaching people how to build their own online fitness businesses as well. People who are training in person or who have no experience kind of building a business, just teaching them the systems on how to do that online. So it's kind of the quick and dirty there.
That is the new wave of everything, right? Is building the online community and doing coaching virtually for a lot of people. I know so many people that
Yeah,
are
I
doing
got
that now.
introduced to it about 3 years ago, and I started doing that right off the jump, and just found that it's way more scalable, and you're able to impact more lives as well. That was kind of my main thing is I was just able to service more people by doing it online as well.
Yeah, that's actually been so I'm part of a excuse me, I'm part of a roundtable group of other
Oh,
gym
cool.
owners across the US. And this has actually been a topic of conversation for quite a number of years now. Is we have our personal trainers leaving us all the time because they're starting their own online social media coaching programs, and they're able to stay at home and coach people virtually and make the same, if not more, money through social media. So it's put a. In fact, I just had one of my best trainers leave because that's what she's doing now, and it's really put a hamper on our
Oh, I
business
bet.
model.
I think there's something to be said about training in person. I have a handful of clients all over the country, but I do have a lot here in San Diego too. And I think there's something that you just can't get online that you can get in person too. So I think there's
Mhm.
always going to be a space for it but from a business sense and just scaling as an entrepreneur, I think it makes sense to go the online route for sure.
Yeah, totally. So how long you said you've been doing the coaching
I've been
for how
doing it
long
for
now?
about 3 years when I started this. But about a year before that, I was kind
Mhm.
of just giving tips to people, helping friends out. And it got to a point where people were just like, dude, you should start charging for this and create a business. And decided to make that leap and just dive into it. So it's been a fun journey.
And so how are you doing with that now? Now that after a few years, is it generating a pretty good amount of
Oh, yeah,
revenue
it's been
for you every
awesome. I
month?
mean, I've been scaling up month over month and just created kind of like a new ads funnel, a new lead system. Going to be hiring a team this year, which is really cool. So to think of where it was 3 years ago, just doing 3 month little programs. I do year long programs with
Mhm.
people, and yeah, I'm so happy with how it's scaled. And obviously, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There's valleys and
Right.
high spots during the journey, but everything's been trending up. And when I look back on the financials, sometimes you're so in the weeds that you kind of don't take the time to look
Mhm.
back and see how you've been doing year over year. So it's been pretty cool. Yeah.
That's great. Good for you. So you're doing like Meta ads, Google ads, all that stuff to
Yeah,
try
so
and
right
acquire
now I have
customers?
messenger ads just through Meta in the background, and so pretty hyper targeted there. And
Mm.
the ads are pretty simple. 15-second reel that just shows up, has a little message button on the bottom, and I have somebody who I hired just running all my messaging, and so kind of created a script together. And he's still talking with them. I'll pop in there and talk to people, but then I end up taking the sales call and talk with them. So I'll be hiring somebody to take those sales calls for me at some point, but I'm kind of running the show right now.
Mhm. So what do you think is the potential? What do you think is the average um, dollars in revenue that a coach could achieve with your
Yeah, so I
model
mean,
per
it
month?
just depends on kind of where you want to scale to and how much work you want to put in and building up a team. I know some people who are doing $100,000 a month right now, and that's my big goal for next year. So I'm sitting at a pretty great revenue per month right now, and I'm very happy. But I just have very big dreams for myself. So those 100K months, I expect to hit sometime late next year with all the systems I'm building up. But yeah,
Hmm.
right now I'm extremely happy. And
Hmm.
it's honestly one of those things where kind of look at the personal training profession. And if you're in person, you're limited to a certain number of clients per day. But like we talked about online, it just scaled way quicker than I thought. So it's been pretty awesome.
So I want to clarify. So what you're saying is 100,000 a month is what coaches coaching coaches, or what coaches are able to do to acquire clients to help them with fat loss and weight
I've seen
loss
coaches
and
do
all of
it
that
both
stuff.
ways. I know people who are making 100K a month on just training
Wow.
people with programs that they have people doing monthly subscriptions on, kind of more of a group coaching model. And then I also know people who
Yep.
are just doing
Yeah.
the business coaching. Right now, I kind of have a split model. I'm doing both, but I'm really scaling up the fitness side of things to put that kind of automated almost. I'm still going to be in it, obviously, and I never want to give
Yeah.
up the value to clients who are going to be in that. But yeah, I've seen it done both ways, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
That's insane. I'm in the wrong business, man. Wow.
Yeah, it's wild.
Um, I mean, how much actually goes into maintaining that kind of workload? I mean, well, let me ask this first. Like, what's your average in order to get to 100,000? What's your average price point
Yeah,
for a
so
coach?
across the board, I would say people usually undercharge for their services, but for most people, I would say it's like $300 to $500 a month in there. But the way that I teach people kind of how to build these pricing systems when I'm teaching the coaches is I've installed things like Affirm and
Hmm.
Klarna and PayPal credit into my payment processors, so I can put someone onto a year contract, but
Mm,
you as a coach are going to get the cash up front, and the client can actually go through and set up their monthly payments however they want. So it's kind of like
gotcha.
great for both sides. For somebody who might not be able to fork up, 5 to 6K chunk just right there, they can set up a payment plan for yourself, and then you're
Yep.
still compensated as a coach for that sale as well.
That's insane. So even at say 4,000, right? So that means that you've got roughly 200. Is that right? Is that math right? No. Yeah, 25. So 25 clients per month on average. If
Yeah,
you're averaging it out, right? Okay.
yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
manageable. It's not like you got to have hundreds and hundreds of clients to
Yeah,
be
I
able to
mean,
do
if you
this,
think
right?
about it, if you're charging like $400 to $500, whatever you feel comfortable with, and obviously you got to provide the value, right? You can't charge up to that point if you're not producing results.
Sure.
But let's say you're doing
Right.
400 a month,
Sure.
for example, and you sell a year, it's
Yeah.
$4,800, outside of taxes and all that. So you make four
Hmm.
sales, you're close to 20K right there. And it's just kind of a numbers game with how you
Yep.
get leads and reach out to people. So, yeah, there's a lot more that goes into the background of this. And I know a lot of good trainers who
Yeah.
just don't necessarily know how to set up all the business systems. And it's not their fault. It's just these companies like NASM and things like this don't teach you how to do the
Yep.
business side of things.
150,000%. Yes, because, and I actually talked about this on one of my other podcasts. I've always said that guys or people, guys and girls, people go out, they'll get their cert, right? NASM, ACE, ISA, right? And they think all of a sudden they're a personal trainer. But all that is
Yeah.
kind of a formality. You don't become a personal, because personal training is a skill. You have to understand how to actually train people, how to put the body through proper movement, how to program correctly, how to scale workouts, how to do progression, all of that stuff, right? You don't learn that until you're actually on the gym floor and you're doing it. And kind of like what you're saying, it's the same thing on the online business side. You've got to learn the systems first, and on top of that, the sales. Because I've said this for years, personal trainers, they're good at personal training, they're not good at
Yeah.
selling, right? It's very rare that you find a personal
Yeah.
trainer that can do both, because selling is its own skill set, just like personal training is its own skill set, and it takes certain personality types. So if you are a trainer or you're a coach that want to go this route, you have to be able to sell not only yourself but your
Yeah,
services as
absolutely.
well.
And I think that's one of the best skills I've learned over the past 3 years. You get tons of objections and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the way I go onto those calls, I do, a 45-minute, I call it an interview call with these clients because I want to make sure we actually like each other before
Hmm.
agreeing to work with each other for a year. Um, but I never feel like I'm
Yep.
selling on those calls because I go into them really trying to understand why someone wants to go through this. And if there's not enough of a why there, I'm
Mm,
okay. I don't want to say turning people away, but I want somebody to have a conviction of why they're going to stick to this for a year. So yeah,
mhm.
um, it is a sales game at the end of the day when you're talking with these people. I just don't like to think like that because I go into it wanting to
Yeah.
help these people. So if someone wants it that bad and you guys click, you're kind of just walking them through a process and giving them value.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Do you think that somebody needs to have uh, a certain social media following to be successful with this, or do you see people that have, a couple hundred followers be successful with it compared to somebody
Oh
that's
yeah,
got
I'd
a
say with
hundred
ads
thousand?
now, it kind of levels the playing field. I'd think like, 5, 6 years ago,
Mm,
if you had more followers, you just had instant credibility. And I'm not saying people with a ton of followers
yeah.
don't have that still, but I know people with, 1,500 followers, 2,000 followers who are doing those, 70, 80, $90,000 months because they've learned how to build the systems that'll bring in the leads. So the follower count isn't translating to your dollar value anymore, is kind of what I've seen across the board.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. What do you think what's the average spend on ads that you see people doing
I think,
with this model?
obviously the more you put in, the more you're going to get out, but you could start with like $30 a day and start to
Hmm.
see results. And then once you start to get some return on ad spend there, you can just bump that up, whatever you're comfortable with. Obviously, you got to be making the revenue to be able to afford the ad spend, but it just becomes this game where it starts stacking on top of each other.
Mm. That's very scalable because if you think about it, like you said, if you're averaging $400 a month for your services, and then you're going to expect this person to pay $30 a day or 900 bucks a month in ads, right? So let's say you're all in for $1,500 a month as your cost. Well, you just need to close one sale
Yep.
and you're ahead.
Yep.
You're
And
covering
then
your
obviously
cost.
as a coach, you can decide to up your prices if you want. You kind of get more valuable, kind of
Hmm.
is up to you. And yeah, I've messed around with that a little bit, but I'm more focused on giving the value for the cost more so than that. And I think like, yeah, just putting more gas on the fire in terms of ad spend is really where you start to see the scalability go up.
So once you get all of your systems built out, and when are you thinking that will
I
be
mean, I've
done?
got the whole lead funnel, the ad system built out. So that's churning right now. And probably by the end of this year, I'll have somebody who's going to be taking some of those sales calls for me. And then I'll be hiring another trainer underneath me.
Hmm.
I've had some people reach out asking if I'm
Mm,
hiring, and I just want to have some help with programming. Obviously, I'm going to oversee that, but I'm going to hire somebody that's also very knowledgeable just to help with some of kind of the front end program work.
mm, mm, mm. So once you have all of these systems built out, how much time are you spending per week on this
I
side
would
of the
say
business?
recently, I've kind of had my head down for the past 3 months, really building this ad funnel out. So it's been more than I would usually like to, but I mean that's kind of being an entrepreneur at its finest. It's just you just got to put your head down and get it
Sure,
done
sure.
sometimes. So, pulling 80-hour
Hmm.
weeks for a while, maybe a little more than that. But when it calms down and some of these systems are in place, that's when you get to take yourself out of the business a little bit. And you're not spending all the
Hmm.
time on checking calls because it'll be more kind of like group style, and it's really how you want it to flow.
Yep,
That's what's cool about the online training space
yep.
is you get to customize it once you get some of those systems built out.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Uh, what are you seeing as like the number one sticking point when it comes to people trying to lose
Yeah,
weight?
I would say the biggest thing, and I probably sound like a broken record when I talk to my clients about this, but I would say nutrition is 90% of the battle. I've had clients who won't even work out for the first month. They'll just go on walks and get their nutrition right. Had a client lose 30 pounds in
Mhm,
3 months by walking and just eating right for the first time. So the workouts are great, but
mm, mm.
if you get your nutrition in check, really everything starts to fall into place.
I think most people don't understand how many calories they ingest in a day and how many calories more they're taking in than they
Yeah, it's
really
like
don't
the
need.
little things like the Starbucks drinks, the sugary liquids, and then your
Yes.
your
Yep.
condiments and your dressings.
Yeah, I can remember when I was kind of first like really trying to dial in my eating and stuff like that. I was using my Fitness
Yeah.
Pal all the time. Now I'm kind of I just do more
Yep.
intuitive eating, but I use my Fitness Pal, and I would say, okay, I'm gonna today I'm gonna go to B Dubs for lunch. Buffalo
Oh
Wild Wings.
yeah,
I don't know
big
if they
fan.
have that out by you, but yeah. So I'd go and I'd get, 8, 12 wings or whatever. And I'm like, well, shit, there's all my
Yeah.
calories for the day.
I know once you start counting stuff, it kind of ruins you in a sense because you just see food as numbers for a while. But
Yeah.
for my
Yep.
clients,
Yeah.
I like them to track for the first 1 to 2 months just so they can understand if they eat a certain amount
Hmm.
of food, your body's going to change in this way. And once that connection's made, kind of like what you said, you
Hmm.
can go to more intuitive eating and just eat for fuel because you
Hmm.
understand what you need to eat during the day to get to that goal. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And even when I went and had that B dubs, it was nowhere near the amount of my macros that I
Yeah.
would need for the day. Right. So you've hit all your calories, but it's all coming from fat and carbs. You're at like 30 grams of protein for the day, and which is a tenth of where I need to
Yeah,
be.
I mean that protein number, even without getting the carbs and the fats in place, if you can get that protein to the right
Hmm.
level, that's just when you're going to see your body start to tighten up in all areas. I don't. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. I see it now. Even if I'm short on my protein, even 30 grams for the day, I will see a body composition
yeah,
adjustment throughout the week. So if I don't hit that, I try and aim for 200
same.
grams of protein per day. But let's say I'm only getting 170 for a few days in a row. I will see my body
Oh
composition
yeah,
change
it's
that
wild. And
quickly.
the more you get dialed in, and the more you're in this, it's your body responds very
Hmm.
minutely to kind of those little things more and more.
Yeah, 100%. And I also tell people that when you actually commit and you're actually eating the way you should be eating, the way that your body should be taking in food, when you go out and you have that pizza to reward yourself, it feels good, but at the same time, you feel like complete garbage after you eat it because you're so used to eating whole food and eating,
Yeah.
quote unquote clean, that when you do have a very dense meal like that, it just like you
Oh
feel
yeah,
like
your body
garbage.
recognizes that it shouldn't be having that stuff, and I mean, I'll be
Yeah.
the first one to say I get a big in and out meal every Saturday. That's kind of like my thing. But Sunday morning, I always pay for it. And my girlfriend laughs at me. I'm just like, it's worth it. I
Yeah.
know it's going to happen. But to your point, yeah, when you're eating that clean, all the ingredients and things that you're not supposed to have, they just exit your body. And we
Mhm.
can kind of leave that part out, but your body knows that it shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, 100%. As well as like, it's if you let's say you're eating 2,000 calories a day as like just
Yeah.
a number to throw out there. If you eat that in whole food, it's a lot of food. 2,000 calories of whole food is
Yeah.
a lot of food. Whereas 2,000 calories from a meal from McDonald's, that's very, very easy to
Yep.
eat in
And
one
the
sitting.
ingredients and the things in like McDonald's, I tell this to my clients a lot.
Yeah.
It will make you feel like you're more full, or sorry, you're more hungry because you
Yep.
don't get full from that food. And it's more satiating. And
Correct.
so it's just, yeah, it just creates a spiral. So you got to do the hard work for like 2 weeks to get off of the fast food and stuff like that. And then your body kind of like restabilizes and
Yep.
gets used to the whole foods.
Yeah. You're like you are with In and Out. I am with Five Guys. Man, I like to get my Five Guys, every few weeks or something like that.
Yep.
It's totally worth
Yeah,
it too.
absolutely. And it's important to have those breaks and get a lot of clients coming in and, asking if they have to eat chicken and rice for a year. And I'm like, look, you can do this thing and still live a life. You just got to give me like 90 to
Yeah.
95% effort. And then you can go eat the things you love. Like you should be able to incorporate
Yeah.
this stuff, but not have to give up all the good things in life
Hmm.
as well.
Uh,
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, what they do is they're good Monday through Friday, and then the weekend comes and they just go all out and they just have lost all the work that they did Monday through
Yep,
Friday
that's
just
a
over the
big thing.
weekend.
And I like to tell my clients don't have a cheat day because you'll just go off the reels or the rails. Have a cheat meal that you just love and then be high protein the
Yeah.
rest of the day. So you can go have that meal. Don't track it, just enjoy it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
1,000% agree. Yeah. Um, what your fat loss business, right? Because you said
Yep.
you've got the two different businesses, the coaching business, coaching the coaches, and then you've got the fat loss business. Where are most of your clients there local, or are you, since you're leveraging social media, are you
Yeah,
getting them
since
from
I
all over?
started running ads and even earlier this year, I was getting more from all over the country just seeing my content and stuff. But I would say for a long time, a majority of my clients were in Seattle, where I moved down from, and in San Diego, just because I
Mm,
had presence there. People knew me. That's how I was getting referrals. But now with the ads, it just, it
hmm.
spreads and I'll just get referrals from Seattle and San Diego, but then the rest of the states too when people start getting results. So, got to put in the work to get your name out there, and then it eventually just starts spreading.
Do you ever track like your conversion rates or anything like that on your ads? I'd be curious to see what your
Yeah,
performance is
so
like
I've
on your
actually
ads.
I've been running it for the past 2 weeks, and the ROAS is about 2,700%. I've got my cost per message down to like $7.84, and when it started, it was about like 8.93.
Wow.
So every week, it's starting to come down a little bit, which is awesome. Which means the ad that I put
Uh-huh.
out and the messaging that we're using is working. And so I'm installing kind of
Hmm.
an ad tracker to track different keywords with different ads that I use. And it'll tell me, pour more money into this one, take some out of that one. And so I'm kind of new to learning everything around just the ad tracking system. But it's been really fun to kind of
Yep.
dive into the back end of Meta for the first time, because once you kind of get over that learning curve, it just makes a
Yep.
ton of sense.
Does because I know a lot of times people's your messages end up in people's spam folders. If you're running the messaging ads, is it more likely not to happen that it's going to hit their primary mailbox rather than their spam
Yeah, so
because you're
there's so
paying
many
for an ad?
different things you can do on the back end, different settings you can play with. But for me, I have the ads showing up on Reels. So when people are scrolling through Reels, it'll just show up on there. It'll also show up on their stories when they're kind of swiping through that stuff. So it shows a little send message thing if this were kind of the ad down at the bottom. And I
Oh,
have a pre-scripted word, just
gotcha.
help. That's kind of like my keyword for people to reach out. So when they press that,
Mhm,
just sends me
mhm,
help, and
mhm.
then I start messaging them and we start having a conversation. So it just goes directly to my DMs. Yep.
Gotcha. Are you using what is it called?
I'm not at
ManyChat?
the moment right now. I have someone that I hired to that I trust, who knows my messaging and knows how I sound like, and obviously it's a conversation that he will have, and then I'll have the actual sales call with
Mhm.
them. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a pretty I just downloaded it just to kind of feel it out, but that's a pretty cool platform that like kind of like what you're saying. You say, "Hey, DM me help," or DM me, whatever,
Yeah.
barbell, and it will automatically send a lead form to that person to, get them into
Yep.
your lead
Absolutely.
funnel.
That's something I've heard of and just still need to check out. So probably going to jump on and see what that's all about after this call.
Yeah. So how many days a week are you working out since you're working all these
Yeah,
hours?
I try to get 4 good lifting days in a week. I do 2 kind of hit training sessions to keep me athletic at this gym called The Yard here in San Diego. And then
Mhm.
recently on Wednesdays, which I did this morning, I'm doing some more of a calisthenics day. So I'm in the gym 6 days a week, but usually I tell my clients that's a lot for them if you're just starting out. But if you know how to fuel the body properly and take the rest on Sunday when you need it, it's
Yep.
manageable. And I like to be active pretty much every day in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Especially in San Diego, you almost need to be because it's always beautiful. I feel like everyone in San Diego is beautiful. Like you got to keep
Yeah,
up
the
with the
fitness
Joneses
culture
out
is
there.
something we definitely had it in Seattle, but it's on steroids down here. And I think it just is kind of the mecca for
Hmm.
fitness and wellness, just in my opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, I was out there last week, right,
Yeah.
for that retreat, and
Yeah.
we went to the
Great gym.
compound
Love that
out
place.
there. Great gym. I mean, super simple. No frills, no amenities. It's just a gym with equipment, some turf. Like it doesn't have
Yeah.
any frills to it, and
Yeah.
it's got a waiting list. That blew my mind when I heard that it's got a waiting list. Like I've been in the gym business for 10 years. my gym has never been had a waiting list. I
Yeah,
wish I
I
was at
mean, the
that point.
owners are amazing. I think the members all connect with them. I know the owners really well. And they just created a space where when people start talking about the equipment that they want or new things, they actually listen and they spend the money
Yeah.
on it. And big warehouse, lots of space, people are filming, and people just love to meet each other in there. It's a cool community in that gym for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. It was a very cool gym. Yeah. Yeah. Is that kind of the hot gym in San
I
Diego,
would
or are there
say that's
others?
one of them. A lot of people do live in Pacific Beach area, and there's two gyms right on the water in Pacific
Uh-huh.
Beach. Fit Mission Beach is one of them. It kind of has that rooftop gym that you probably see on social media. And then there's another one called Ocean Pacific. They're both great spots. People just have their preferences, but I know people will just they'll just jump around to
Yeah.
different spots. So it's kind of just your personal preference.
Right. Right. So are you actually training people in the gym too,
No, I'm
or?
not. I'm doing completely all online, but some of my clients who are here in San Diego, I'll
Mhm.
go work out with them just because I like to see them in person and I like to run through, like if they have form questions,
Sure.
I'll meet them in person and just go through some lifts with them because if I can do it, then why not? You know,
Mhm.
I love doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, where um, where are you focusing more on? Are you focusing more on the coaching side of the business, or the gaining more
Right now,
weight
it's
loss
more the weight
clients?
loss and fat loss. That just kind of did something for me mentally the first time I helped someone drop 80 pounds. And we became great friends through that process. It just did something in my heart where I was like, wow, that is really cool to see someone's life completely do a 180 and play a small part. So, focusing a lot of
Mhm.
time on that to build it up to a degree to where I can impact as many people as possible with building these systems out. A lot of people think sometimes you're doing it all for money. I like to say the money is a byproduct of really helping as many people as you can.
Yeah.
It's a business at the end of the
Mhm.
day too, but the coaching side of things has been really cool to help some people build up their businesses. And I've had one person leave his job completely and make 15K in the first 2 weeks with the things that I've taught him. So I've got knowledge passed down to me, and it's
Wow.
been really cool to pass that on to other people too. But yeah, the main focus is the fat loss and weight loss at the moment.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, hey, Gary Vee says it all the time: is you are proportionally monetarily reimbursed on the
Yeah.
value that you give. So if you're giving a lot of value, then you are proportionally paid
Yeah.
accordingly for that,
100%.
right? And this is I mean, especially in America, this is a huge need because Americans are extremely
Yeah.
overweight as a whole. And so there needs to be more people that understand nutrition, understand working out, understand calories and weight loss and
Yeah,
all
and I
that
think that's
stuff.
kind of one of the main reasons I really wanted to do this, obviously helping people, but I just throughout the years of being into this myself, I realized that a lot of the information that I think is very elementary to me and probably to you at this point, 70-80% of Americans
Mhm.
just never learn this stuff throughout any sort of schooling. And I just
No.
looked back on my education and I'm like, I self-taught all of this stuff or asked questions of people. It was never
Yep.
given to us. And you start to kind of ask your question, why? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I have people in the gym all the time coming to me and telling me, "Oh, I need to lose weight, so I'm just going to cut out all my carbs."
Yeah.
I'm like, no. I mean, that is a that is a short term reaction to a long term problem, right? I mean, you cut out carbs, yeah, you're going to lose weight, but the minute you go back to eating like you normally eat, you're going to gain all that weight back, you
Yeah.
know? So it's about understanding metabolism, and I teach people not on calories. I teach them
Yep.
based off
Same.
of macros. That's how I usually assign diet plan. I hate to even call it a diet. I call it
Yeah.
meal planning, if you will. Yeah. I think that macros is the king, and that's where you should be focusing on your nutrition, because the calories just fall in line at that place
100%.
at that
And
point.
I am very deep into the macro world as well. I think it's really important to understand that. I think that's kind of level one. Once you get that, then it's the quality of food you're putting in your body too, and understanding that, like you
Yeah.
said, you
Hmm.
can eat a ton of carbohydrates and still burn fat and lose weight. It doesn't have to be cut
Yeah.
out. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I know, I know bodybuilders, natural bodybuilders, no, not taking steroids. These guys would be in prep for a show and still eating 1,000 grams of
Oh, yeah.
carbs per
Those
day.
guys eat so much food and people don't understand. Even the
Yeah.
guys who are on steroids. Like I have no hate to that. I've never done that myself. I mean, these guys put in an insane amount of work and
Yeah.
eat so much food. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Arnold back in the day used to
I
eat 10,
know.
12,000
It's
calories.
wild.
Yeah, it is. It is. And even like you look on the other side, right? Strongmen, that's not really, they're not really worried about their physique. They're worried about strength, but they're eating 10 to 15,000 calories a day because ultimately food is energy, food is fuel, and
Oh
that's what
yeah, it's
drives
a
everything
full-time job.
forward.
I know some bodybuilders who, get up in the middle of the night to make sure they're getting all their meals in. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'll ever go to that
I know.
extreme, but I know it happens and these guys are on
Yeah,
stage for a reason. Yeah.
yeah. I can remember watching like a documentary on YouTube with Jay Cutler, and he just despised eating because he had to
Yeah.
eat so much because he's hitting the stage at 290, 280 at, 2% body fat. But he had to eat just an ungodly amount of food every day. And he said
Yeah,
it just is tiring.
absolutely. And even for my clients, I would say most of the clients I have coming in on a smaller scale are chronically under eating men and women. And so even if I'm bumping
Hmm.
them up
Yeah.
to, a guy to 2,500 calories for the first time, even that is just a huge struggle. And I'm like, look, we're eventually going to get over 3,000. So I'm just prepping your stomach for this. But yeah,
Yeah. I recently started helping a fighter who's got a fight coming up, and I sent him a meal plan, and I started him, very simple, very basic, a little bit more than what he's eating now, but not where he needs to be. And we're like 3 weeks in, and I have not adjusted his food at all because he still
yeah,
feels bloated. He's having a hard time getting all the food in. And I told him this week, I'm like, look, if you don't cut weight, then I'm going to cut food back so we can get the metabolism to meet up to where the food
yep,
needs
exactly.
to be.
That's the right way to think about that for sure.
What percentage of your weight loss clients do you think hit their goal? Because I know, personally speaking, I know a lot of people that they have good intentions on wanting to lose all this weight, but it takes a lot of discipline, right? And it's a lifestyle to be able to eat the way that you should be
Yeah.
eating. It's a lifestyle. What percentage of your clients do you think actually achieve their goal and stick to the plan and stick to that way of life? Because it's very easy to go
Yeah,
off
I
the
mean, I
rails.
would say I do a really good job of making sure that I check in with my clients, even if I don't hear from them for a little bit. I have regular check ins set up, but it's life over the course of a year. Things are going to happen. But I'm really proud to say, I would say like
Mm,
95%. It's really just the kind of the one off clients who, and I say this in the beginning, like before we start this, one of the biggest things that will help you be successful is the accountability portion. We need to be checking in about this stuff outside of I can see all your
yeah.
workouts being done in Trainer Eyes. I can see the activity, but we need to make sure we're talking. So it's really, and it's only happened very few times, where a client will just stop messaging or whatever. And as a trainer, you kind of start to feel guilty, but at some point, it's kind of on the other person too. And if it's just a rarity and not the
Hmm.
rule, then there's not much you can do about that. But the clients who stick to it, they always meet their goal, which is something that's been really cool to see over the past 3 years with the people I've worked with.
Do you get a lot of clients that renew
Yeah, I've
after
had
the
a ton of
first
people who
year?
have been working with me for 2 years, and I've had one who's working with me for 3 years just because, I had him when he was at his biggest and he had big goals. And now we're in that phase in our program on year 3 where we're just building him up muscle wise and just getting him bigger than he ever thought he could be. But yeah, it's fun to get those renewals with clients. It means we have a great relationship and they got the goals and they just want to see how much farther they can actually push their body. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Where do you think people should go for reliable sources of information when it comes to um, nutrition, when it comes to eating, when it comes to working out, all of
I
that
would
stuff?
say
Let's say on social media, because everyone's face is in social media
Yeah, I would
nowadays.
say it's tough because there's so many people putting information out there, right? I would say
Hmm.
you want to listen to the people who definitely have a good sense on nutrition, and they're not telling you to just cut a bunch of calories to lose weight. I find that like when people do that, it's more so to get um, results quickly, but it's not going to be sustainable. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of names I can think of.
Hmm.
I have a buddy here in San Diego. His name's Tony, and his Instagram handle's Train Bloom. I'll give him a shout out on here because he's just an awesome guy. And he just gives the best breakdowns of videos and talks about the realest things just in fitness and nutrition in a really cool way. It's somebody you should check out for sure. Um,
Train
yeah.
Bloom. I'm going to look him up right now.
Yes.
Trainbloom. Oh yeah, there he is. Okay. Oh wow, he's got
Oh
almost a
yeah.
500,000 followers.
Met him here in San Diego and just ended up becoming friends. I think we became friends before I saw what his Instagram looked like. But the type of content,
And he's in type
yeah,
1
the type of
diabetic
content
too.
that he puts out is just really great for everybody. You know, he'll cover things like creatine and why it's good for you, and
Yeah,
the things to kind of look out for with different diet fads. And he is very science based, and he goes in and does a lot of great content. Yeah.
that's awesome. He'd be a great person to talk to for sure. Anybody else that sticks out in
Um,
your mind?
I mean, I have some friends who are trainers down here who I think just get it from that point. But I guess in terms of just like looking for reliable information, you want to have somebody that understands that you need to pair the training up with nutrition, and that nutrition and kind of the food you're putting in your body
Hmm.
is both going to help you see the physical results, but also is going to help on the mental side of things. So I think it's hard to pinpoint like one or,
Right.
so many people because there's just so many voices out there on social media now. Yeah.
Yes, there is. Yeah. Is the majority of your clients men
I'd
or
say it's a
women?
pretty 50-50 split at this point. It was men in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but then I got a couple women clients, and that just kind of started that trend because I don't think people knew I was working with women. But now I think I've created a solid base in both areas. Yeah.
Right. Um, do you find that when you're working with women that their worry is about getting too
I've
big and
heard that a
bulky?
couple of times. I think like that comes around taking
Hmm.
creatine and not wanting to get the arms too big, kind of have that stacked look. And I'm just like, hey, you know what? It's going to take a long time for you to get there, even if you were working out 5 days a week for 6 months and you're just starting out. You're probably not going to get that bulky look. It's going to
Yeah,
give you that more toned look, and we can go there if you want. But yeah,
sure.
I've heard that worry a couple
Yeah.
of times, but I always try to debunk that when we're talking on that first call.
Yeah, I get women in the gym all the time saying that I don't want to get big and bulky, and I always sound like, look, you guys don't have the hormones to get to the point where you look like that bodybuilder chick that's on a magazine that is actually
Yes.
taking steroids
That's the
to
other
look like
thing.
that. Yeah, so
And that
yeah,
I think the biggest piece of
totally.
education is just all about the metabolism. And the biggest thing I like to explain is
Hmm.
when you strength train and you put muscle on the body, that helps your body burn calories the other 23 hours of the day that you're not working out. So the more you're eating, the more you're putting muscle on, it's actually doing your body a service in the fat loss arena. And that's just a hard concept for people to understand if you're not kind of deep in the nutrition and wellness realm.
100%. I mean, especially if you're getting older, right? The older you get, the more reason that you should be working out to maintain muscle mass, to maintain bone density, all of that stuff, because ultimately, as you age, those things decrease. And that's where a lot of your health
Yeah, I
problems
mean,
come
I've
into
met
play.
50, 60-year-olds down here who look incredibly young because they just never stopped moving their body, and they've been working out since they were 20 and just never stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at Joe Rogan. He's pushing 60 years
No,
old. He
dude
doesn't
looks
look
like
like
a
he's almost
tank. Like
60.
he's in the best shape of his life.
I know, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my goal right there. I want to get like that. My big thing now is I want to get to the point where I can afford to
Yeah.
do stem cells because I've got so many injuries from some of my stuff that I've done in life with working
Yeah.
out and competing and stuff. So I want to get stem cells like on my shoulders and stuff like that to help rebuild a
Yeah,
lot of
that would
that
be really
tissue.
cool. I don't even know what that costs or what that looks like. I haven't dove into that at all.
I've had friends that have done it. They've gone to like Mexico or they've gone to BioAccelerator in Colombia. And gone to like Mexico. I know BioAccelerator. I think in particular sites, and you get the IV of stem cells because the IV of stem cells is supposed to help with inflammation and
Yeah.
rejuvenating the body overall. I want to say it's upwards of
Wow.
like 30
Okay.
grand to
Yeah.
do it to do that.
But worth it at that
Yeah,
point, you know?
it's
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, if it's gonna rewind the clock on your body, 5 to 10 years and slow the aging process a couple more years, it's totally worth that
Yeah.
money to spend,
I've got
in my
a I've got a
opinion.
quick question for you actually just on the nutrition side of things. It just kind of came to mind. I've always heard a lot of
Yeah.
controversy and people have their own opinions around organic food and grass-fed meats and all this stuff. What's kind of your take on that and what do you typically eat on a daily basis that's organic or not, or how do you feel about kind of that contradiction?
As of late, I would say in the last couple of years, I have made a more conscious effort to get as close to
Yeah.
farm to table as possible. Um, I think
Yeah.
organic is a marketing word because if you buy something in the store that says organic, it's really
Yes.
not that organic because the FDA still allows a percentage of either I think GMO, but I definitely know a certain amount of pesticides are allowed in organic food. So it's not really
Yeah.
that organic. I will tell you. So I always buy a whole
Awesome.
cow every year from a local farmer, and it's not grass fed. I mean, it's allowed to roam, but it's usually
Yeah.
grain finished, towards the end of its life. But ultimately, it's grass
Right.
fed, but it's grain finished. The meat that comes from that cow compared to the meat that I buy at the supermarket, the taste and the
Yeah.
quality is night and day because the meat that I get from that cow, it tastes phenomenal. Even when I go to like, if let's say I went and I bought 93% ground beef, right? And from the store, and I said I took the same 93% ground
Yeah.
beef from my cow. When I brown that on the stove, the meat from the store, the fat content or amount of fat that comes off of browning that meat is significantly more than the 93% I get from the cow
Yeah.
from a local
Yeah.
farmer. That's one thing. The taste is the far superior taste that I get from
Yeah.
local meat. I'm going to the extent of even like my eggs. I try and get my eggs from local farmers. I eat a
Yeah.
lot of eggs every day. It's hard because I'm buying like six
I
dozen
know.
eggs at a time, you know. Um, but like if I get eggs from the store, you crack that egg open on the pan and you're pan frying it. The yolk is very like dim yellow. It's not a very quality color. But if you crack that egg open from a farmer, it is bright orange. You can tell it's just got all of those essential minerals and vitamins in there. So I try and get as close to farm to table as possible. And I usually eat. I'm very basic with my eating. I'm not. I don't do frills with my eating. Like I said, I might have my Five Guys, or if there happens to be some cookies or brownies laying around the
Yeah.
house, those are my kryptonites. But ultimately, no, I'm eating mostly whole food. I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of red meat. I know that red meat is demonized, but I don't agree with that
Yep.
synopsis. I think that look at, 100 years ago, that's all our ancestors
Yep.
mostly ate was red meat. Chickens 100 years ago were not the chickens of today. Um, so yeah, no, I eat a lot of red meat. I do eat chicken. Um, actually, in January, I actually did a modified
Okay.
carnivore diet because I wanted to see how my body responded. most of the time my carbs would come from jasmine rice
Yep.
or potatoes. And a lot of times the rice or the carbs would get me a little gassy. And so I wanted to see how my body responded to a modified carnivore. So I picked up doing a lot more fruit. I get locally sourced honey and locally sourced maple syrup, and that's what I'll utilize as my carb source. Maybe some cheese too, even though cheese is more
Yep.
fatty than it is carb. There is the lactose that's in it. And I'm going to tell you what, that to me was another game changer because I felt phenomenal doing it that way. I felt like my inflammation in my body was way lower. I had way more energy. I know a lot of people that will eat their meal midday, even if it's a clean meal, and they'll get tired. They'll get sitting at their desk and they'll be like nodding off, and I didn't get that anymore when I was doing the modified carnivore. So I think there's
Yeah.
something
No,
to
I
that.
think so too. And I agree with you on the farm to table. My girlfriend's very big into that, and she really kind of got me on that 2 years ago, as opposed to me just zeroing in on macros because I was such a macro guy without thinking of the
Yeah.
everything that I was eating. But the farm to table, I mean, I haven't been
Yep.
sick in 2 years, and this is how I eat every day. I keep it super simple: rice, potatoes, or fruit, honey for carbs, red meat, chicken, eggs for my
Mm-hmm.
proteins, maybe some whey protein if I need to get up there. And then, yeah, for fats, just
Yep.
eggs, raw cheese, raw milk, avocados, extra
Yep.
virgin olive oil, things like that. So I guess my reason for asking that was just kind of want to see if we were on the same page. And I think, when people go to the
Yeah.
farm to table, you can think all you want, but tell me how you feel after doing that for a month. And that should tell you everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's some guys on the internet that will push back against that claim because they
Yeah.
look at the studies, right? They're so into the weeds of the studies. But I think there is something to say about how you feel, even though the studies say there's no difference between, this or that. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that because just because a study says something, I think there's something to say about somebody actually feeling a difference when they
Yeah.
choose a different food,
100%.
right?
And like you said, there are a ton of great studies out there, and I know there's a lot of people do a ton of research, but the clients I've had go this way. A lot of them will give up coffee. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of them will give up that junk food, and they just
Mm-hmm.
tell me mentally they feel 100% better than when they started this. And if a study is going to say that's not
Mm-hmm.
real, but the person's feeling it, I, I don't know what to say there at some point.
I will say, prior to me doing this modified carnivore diet, I always had a really
Yeah.
big sweet tooth. And when I switched this way, I had zero cravings when it came to
Yep.
sweets. Zero. The minute I introduced carbs, like traditional carbs back into the fold, I started getting those cravings
Yeah.
again. It was
I
wild.
mean, you get to a point where your taste buds actually start to change. And when I tell my clients, when fruit starts
Hmm.
tasting like candy to you and you start craving that, everything's kind of changed over.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, even the honey, like if I ever ran out of the locally sourced honey and I would have to get honey from the store, again, tastes completely different. You
Um,
don't feel the same. I mean, I'm trying to get as back to basics as possible on how humans evolved from normal food, not
yeah.
all this processed shit. There's so much processed shit on the shelves. It's even if you don't think it's processed, it's probably processed in some way. In fact, I got into this conversation with a friend of mine this morning. She's in Italy, and I had asked her, I'm like, "Hey, will you send me some flour from Italy because I know that Europe, their food standards are way stricter
Yes.
than here in the US." And so I had asked her, "Will you send me some of your flour from Italy because the flour over there, they don't use GMO and they don't use glyphosate. And I know that so many people have gluten problems, they have leaky gut, they have irritable bowel syndrome. A lot of it relates back to the food here
Yeah.
in the States, particularly flour, because flour is used in
Yeah.
so much, right? And it's destroying your gut. It's destroying your intestines. So anyways, I wanted to get this flour because I'd like to make, homemade pasta from their flour or sourdough
Yeah.
from their flour, right? Fermented foods. And she actually looked it up. Here's what's crazy. There's only 4 flours in Italy that are 100% Italian flour. The other flours are 60% of the wheat comes from the US and Canada, and the other 40% is from Italy. So they actually mix the two wheats together into other flours in Italy. But otherwise, there's only 4 brands that you could buy that is 100% Italian wheat
That is
flour.
so crazy. And it just, I mean, we could spend another 2 hours talking about, I think, our food system.
Oh God.
But I don't know the ingredients exactly, but I know for sure that there are ingredients in the US that are banned in a lot of countries in Europe,
Hmm.
especially Italy, kind of to your point. And I have
Hmm.
clients who will, go on a trip while we're training together and say, how much better they felt eating the food in different countries. And when they
Yeah.
come back, they start to see some of their problems re-emerging. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. In fact, we were talking about that. I asked her, I said, when you eat pasta, do you feel bloated? She's like, no, not at all. And I said, really? I go, if I eat a plate of pasta here, even if it's a small plate, like I
Yeah.
feel extremely bloated. She's like, what? Are you serious? She's like, well, what about if you have pizza? I said, oh no, especially pizza. She's like, that does not happen here. She goes, do you let I found this interesting. She said, when you're making pizza in the US, do you guys let the dough rise for 24 hours? I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know like
Yeah.
how Domino's or whatnot does it, but um, I said, no, I don't think so. And she's like, that's your problem. She's like, we let it rise. We let dough rise for at least 24
Mm.
hours because it ferments. And that fermentation process is what gets rid of or what allows the body to process it better. I was like,
I
wow,
know I was going
that's
to bring up
crazy.
Domino's as an example. I think I had it once about 2 months ago, and I don't think I've had a bigger stomach ache. And I was down in that every weekend in college, but my body was filled with also just shit back then. So, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, even our alcohol, right? Our alcohol is
yeah,
all grain based, and it's the same thing. It's compounded because it's not just in our food. I mean, look, our fucking water supply is
yeah,
even tarnished, right? Like they're saying now. Like I was actually listening to Dr. Soderberg. Do you know
I don't
her,
think
Dr.
so.
Soderberg? She's big on. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Uh, she's big on like sauna therapy
Yep.
and
Okay.
cold therapy, cold plunging, and all of that stuff. But she's also big into. She studies nutrition as well. But she was saying that people should be doing reverse osmosis on their water because of the amount of plastics in our
Yeah.
water nowadays. And I don't think more, I mean, again, we could talk another hour about this, but I don't think people understand the problem with microplastics in people's food
Yeah.
and in their bodies because we make a meal. What do? We throw it in some Tupperware, right? That hot food hits the Tupperware, and it when it scalds the Tupperware like that, you get microplastics
Yep.
in the food. Now you're ingesting that, and now that's causing hormone disruptions on top of all the other hormone disruptions that are in your household, right? Between cleaning agents and like Downy,
Yeah,
all of
it's
that
wild.
stuff.
And I think one of the biggest culprits and things that we see today that's in so many products, and probably looked like a crazy person when I first started recognizing this, but the different seed oils that are in all of our products in the big
Oh,
grocery stores like
yep.
Vaughn's, Fred Meyer, QFC, whatever your
Hmm.
thing is where you have it. But I went down the section the other day looking at cereals, and I found maybe two in the whole aisle that didn't have some form of seed oil in it. And I'm like, man, this is wild.
Crazy. That is another when I did the when I started the modified carnivore. That is one thing that I really really kept an eye on are seed
Yeah.
oils because you're right. You don't realize how much seed oils are in the food.
Yeah. And I think that's just something I've been way more conscious of over the past couple years. And
Hmm.
it's really sad to see that in, I would say, about 95% of the products that are in grocery stores. And people are just eating this
Yeah.
every day. And I know that like those foods are typically priced cheaper, and cost of groceries, again,
Hmm.
another big conversation, but it's tough. It's tough. It's all interconnected, and it's just hard to see that that has been deemed as the standard diet for most Americans, or these products that are just being pushed on us and our kids every day.
No, I agree. I mean, you know, going back to what I was saying about as close to farm to table, and like going off of what you're saying with the cost of groceries, when people ask me about how I eat and I tell them, and they're like, "Oh, that's got to cost a fortune." I'm like, "No." I go, "Do you know how much my cow costs me?" And they're like, "No." I said, "It averages out to
Yep.
$4 a pound, butchered." I said, "You can't even go into the store and get ground beef for
$10
$4 a
now.
pound." Yet I'm getting T-bones. Yeah, 10 bucks. I'm getting T-bones. I'm getting porterhouses. I'm getting sirloins for $4 a pound, right? And on my eggs are $6 to $8 a dozen now. My eggs that I get from the
Yep.
farmer, 3 to 4
Exactly.
bucks. So it could be done. It's just you have to, make the effort to, get source your food
Yeah, it's
from
just
the right
easier to pop
place.
into QFC or a Vons on the way home than go to a
Mhm.
farmer's market every weekend. And I get that. Not everybody has the time, got kids, so many different things going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I would say that's kind of my main mission right now, besides creating these businesses, is really just the education around nutrition in a sense, and some of these things that we've just never been taught, but are really big deals in how we feel physically and mentally every day.
I think that's great. I think there needs to be more people of your caliber doing that, because I think that not only would it change um, Americans' obesity rate, but it would change Americans' medical problems as well. I mean, everyone takes a pill for something nowadays, but if people just realize if you ate right, you could cure a
Yeah.
lot of your
I mean, I had
problems.
a guy who was training with me for just 2 months, and he had never eaten that much protein in his life. And after 2 months of training his legs for the first time, exercising regularly, I can't remember the exact number on it, but his testosterone shot through the roof. And people just don't understand how all these things are just diminishing that, especially for men. So, as you said, so many different
Yep.
topics we could branch off to in this, but it really does come down to the food that we're eating in our body that's literally making up who we are every day. Yeah,
Yeah. I read a stat that said the average 21-year-old of today has the same testosterone levels as a 70-year-old from the
that's
30s.
so sad. Yeah.
It's very sad. Yeah. Yeah. Jacob, man, I really appreciate you coming on. Where can
Yeah, so
people
you can
get in
find me
touch
on
with
my
you?
Instagram. It's at Jacob Bills. That's typically where I'll be responding, or my business page is at Built by Bill. So those would probably be the best two places to reach out.
Go check out Jacob. He's a rock star. He's killing it. And if you're looking for weight loss strategies and help, I highly recommend Jacob.
Thanks,
Jacob,
Bill.
thanks for coming
Appreciate
on,
it. Great
man.
conversation today. You too.
Yep. Have a good one.